I'm filming this a little bit early because I have some stuff going Friday and I might not be able to get around to it. So, huzzah! No, not huzzah. Presto, abracadabra. I don't know. I was thinking about this notion. It feels like, on a psychological level, stuff can start to get very weird when you start to confuse that which is useful with that which is real. For example, if I were to ask you to recite the alphabet, I'm quite sure I know what order you would recite the alphabet in. That is the order. That's the order. Like, but is it the order? Like, is it intuitively? Is there any intuitive connection between the letters? Not really. At some point, we decided that that was how we were going to say them, I think. Language is inherently, it's just kind of arbitrary. It's something we created, it's our construct. There's no intuitive or innate order to how we decided to do things. We just decided that, hey, this is how we do it. But we've used it for so long that I think it's very easy to think of it as being intuitive or orderly, like innately orderly, right? Where's it going with this? But it feels like the problem is that you start to confuse that which is useful, which language is very useful, with that which is real or intuitive or innate or objective, right? So you can start to stick words together and think that they have meaning, right? I'll recite a group of random words: uh, indigo, badger, beautiful, five. I'm not thinking that's a number. Um, snarky, kumquat, right? Now, what is this term I've come up with? Right? Well, no, it's not a term. It's a series of nonsensical words. I'm not describing a thought or anything like that. I've used a series of words and mashed them together, which doesn't innately mean anything. And again, it feels like some of the issues that can maybe arise are because we confuse that which is useful with that which is real on some level. Hopefully that makes sense. It feels really kind of out there a little bit, maybe. And I'm aware of that to some extent. But what we assume is that we come up with constructs. We come up with really useful constructs. And again, because we use them for so long, it feels like we start to confuse that them for being something that is actually like real and like objectively true or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, moving on, we have a video we're going to review from IP, Inspiring Philosophy and whatnot. All right, let me check here. There. Start spreading the news. No, no, not that. No, that can be on. What the? Give me a second. All right. There we go. Yeah, here we go. Video by IP: How Christianity Educated the World.
2,000 years ago. Very
Here's something. Well, one, his voice sounds different and almost weird in his videos. Just message to IP if you're out there somewhere. He's watched a couple of my videos before, so we'll flatter ourselves that he's going to watch this. But but two, there was actually something I was going to ask him in a super chat at some point. He had mentioned that kind of the falsity that Christianity in the Middle Ages was trying to keep people ignorant so they could control them by controlling the who had or did not have the Bible. And I'm not like he kind of scoffed at that idea, and I'm not saying he's actually wrong in that regard. Like that Christianity did want to educate people and increase literacy and stuff like that, but it does feel like the events that precipitated the creation of the printing press was a lack of legible scriptures, unless I'm wrong there. But I think that was the idea that a lot of people they didn't have scriptures that they could read. Maybe they couldn't read Latin, I think in particular, so that they wanted to create the printing press so that everyone could have like their own copy of this type of stuff, and that the clergy didn't have a chokehold over the word of God. Sorry, I don't know why I put air quotes there. The word of God.
Very few people could read or write. General estimates place the literacy rate below 10% of the global population. Today we know
All right.
literacy has been 2,000 years ago.
Hmm.
Very few people could read or write. General estimates place the literacy
And from what I understand, that was more of a class thing, perhaps, than I'm gonna guess. Like, very few people would have been educated, like, at all. So that might have been part of it. I could be wrong here. I'm just pulling stuff out of thin air.
rate below 10% of the global population. Today we know literacy has been tied to economic growth and life satisfaction. When a population is literate, it creates more critically thinking individuals who have more opportunities.
I have never critically thought in my no. It's just one of those terms that I hate that people use so much. It's not a bad term. I just hate that people use it, and the contrarian in me is just kind of rebels at the notion of it.
And can generate more skills. But for most of history, the overwhelming majority of people were kept in the dark and lacked access to this valuable skill.
And it's like
Literacy
there's a point to be made there where it is like worlds of difference between like the knowledge you can acquire if you can read versus otherwise, because they like it. It's like the world it opens up to you is insane, which is kind of weird. Like it's kind of a shame, like a crying shame that they're not teaching it better in schools. I've gotten the idea that like a lot of people don't have a very good, like even like in the schools these days in America, there's some people who have failed the children, if you will. That some children have very poor literacy rates and whatnot. Yeah, I guess.
was a skill for the rich and the elites. The poor rarely had a chance to gain it, and so they were often kept in their positions for generations.
I was actually listening to a Metatron thing where there was kind of a notion that like the different types of slaves is what he was talking about. You should actually look that up or look that video up if you get a chance. But the idea was that the different type of slaves would be valued for different things, and yet the idea was that Greek slaves were particularly valuable because the idea was that they could maybe almost serve as tutors to the children, that they could teach the children Greek and whatnot like that. There's kind of a benevolent stereotype that Greek slaves were that way, I guess, that the Greek slaves were these really valuable, really precious commodity a little bit. Docile. That makes yeah, I think that was one of the kind of the ideas that they were well mannered and stuff like that. That they were that sort of slave.
With no way out. But then one day, a new religion began to spread around the world. Many of its
Dun,
evangelists
dun,
desired
dun.
greatly that all converts be able to hear God's word, or even read it for themselves. As its influence grew, a new era slowly
Okay, that's creepy.
emerged, where literacy became the norm. And without this religion, we may never have entered a time when most people could read and write. This is the story of how Christianity educated the world.
Mm,
Over 8,000 men have permanently broken free from the P word by watching one single video training that you can
mm.
actually watch by clicking the link.
Okay, that looks like one of the things from Doctor Strange. Just saying, he's a witch.
In the ancient world, texts were used by the bureaucratic elites. They were not for the masses. Joshua Berman notes the text of the Enuma Elish was never seen by the common man. This was a text
Mm.
for the priests and the elites of their society, to be used in religious rituals. Commoners did have access to texts inscribed on monuments, but few could read them. The purpose of monumental texts
That's That's one of the issues it seems like always arises when you have like a group of people that has a very esoteric sort of knowledge. There's like a prime opportunity for them to exercise control over the larger group that believes in the knowledge, that believes in the religion or something like that, but can't read the stuff for themselves. It's a very unfortunate spot to find yourself in because they can kind of say whatever they want a little bit. Unless, of course, they get smitten by God. That would be something.
Was for royal display of power, not to provide the masses with written words. In Egypt, texts were guarded and reserved for members of the upper class. It is likely that less than 1% of the Egyptian population ever knew how to read. The Ipuwer Papyrus laments that commoners
Hmm.
have access to texts and can now speak openly the spells held within them. Texts were read out loud to the public from time to time, but these were mostly not long duration texts or narratives, but more often administrative texts detailing changes in rulership or political dealings the public had to be made aware of.
Mhm.
But things were different in the Hebrew scriptures, which eventually, with the combination of the New Testament, would ignite a cultural revolution of literacy.
Mhm.
Joshua Berman notes in the Hebrew Bible, we see the Torah is to be written down and taught to the people of Israel so that they can learn what it says. Not only that, but other biblical passages speak of public readings from the Torah. Jeremiah speaks of Baruch reading his words to the people. Habakkuk refers to his words being read to larger.
Well, I imagine in other religions that would be like a very vague sort of kind of axiom that yeah you might not read it verbatim, I guess, but you would at least say that this is what God wants, blah 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 blah. But there might not have been as much of a codified type of like thing with other religions.
Audiences. Isaiah instructs that we read from the book of the law. The Torah assumes that the people of Israel are to be read its contents, and it speaks of the people themselves as in covenant with God and meant to understand what is required of them. Israel is called to become a wise and discerning nation and a kingdom of priests. There is no
Hmm.
distinction between the elites and the common folk in this sense. Fathers are called to educate their children and teach them the law of God and the story of the
Hmm.
Exodus. Therefore, all are called to be an educated people within Israel. Berman says, the Bible sees the oral textual education system whereby the
Joshua
literate
Berman.
read the text for the consumption of others, as encompassing the whole of Israel. It is telling that the Bible never depicts priests or scribes as jealous or protective of their writing skills. The notion of scribes feeling threatened lest serfs become the owner of serfs, or that it is a tragedy if divine knowledge falls into the wrong hands, as Ipuwer put it in the Egyptian Middle Kingdom passage, is alien to biblical thought. Within the
Hmm.
vision of the Pentateuch, reading and
There's a lot of hmm. There's a lot of stuff in Paul's writings. The idea would be that like there's neither bond nor free, neither blah blah blah. First shall be last, last shall be first, etc., etc. It feels like a very countercultural movement Christianity does. Not to glaze my own religion that too much, but we are pretty great.
writing were not viewed as the
Not the people itself, but the idea is pretty great. Okay, people are as flawed as anyone else. So in theory, actually, in theory, yes, this is how Christianity should always be practiced. But I'm gonna guess that there were in practice, this was not always the case. In the Middle Ages, you can probably see stuff like this present, like the serf system or stuff like that between royals and whatnot, where peasants would have been almost uh, kind of depicted as a lower class of human a little bit. But I also think like that type of distinction or disparity would have had to have been like created almost like if you're saying that all humans are equal, then you have to create another category of non-human type of person that you can abuse, right? Because they're not really human. That makes sense. Like the same thing, and maybe existed with regards to slavery a little bit. Like the fact that they were having to come up with this like subcategory of human was actually kind of a good thing. That sounds weird. I'm not saying slavery was a good thing. I'm not saying like treating peasants as subhuman was a good thing. but the fact that they had to justify it on some level was maybe an indicator of like a conscientious uh, qualm that they had to figure a way around a little bit.
The exclusive domain of a scribal class and ruling court, as was the case for Israel's neighbors.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking
Edge,
about it.
ridge.
Meet Base 44, a complete
Yeah,
AI.
I mean, does it feel like AI is kind of the new Bluetooth now? It's like a word they tack onto everything. Like I'm not saying it's not AI. I'm just saying it feels like you hear that word again and again and again in the same way that you maybe before you'd always hear like Bluetooth, 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 AI helper, AI empowered, AI. It's like kind of
The
annoying.
importance of the written word is also at the center of the Israelite religion. In the ancient pagan world, the idol, or image of the god, was the central focus of the cultic worship. Graven images of God are forbidden in the Torah, and
Mm.
instead, what is at the center that represents God's immanence in the world?
That's another kind of abnormality, I think, with Christianity as opposed to other religions or paganism or stuff like that. Like that there wasn't. I mean, technically there was the Ark of the Covenant, but that wasn't really a depiction of God. It's more. I think the idea was that it was the dwelling place for God that He would come down and rest between the two cherubims there, or whatever. It does feel like there are a number of things that kind of set it apart from other religions like that. For example, I think I've noted this before, but generally speaking, in other religions, there's a god of something, right? There's a god of blank, and not like, and not saying that there aren't creator gods, but it feels like monotheism in general. The notion is that it's not like a god of something; it's a god of everything. If that makes sense.
Are the written tablets of the Ten Commandments? The way to encounter God and feel His immanence is through written texts, which subtly suggests reading is central to knowing God. Berman says, the locus of worship in the sanctuary is not a graven image, but the graven tablets that bear the signature of the
Hmm.
Almighty, the sample of the divine.
Not sure what was it. It was I think it was the graven image. No, sorry, the graven tablets and some of the manna, maybe from when they were in the desert. There was some stuff that was inside the Ark of the Covenant, I think.
Word, written in the divine hand, tucked away in the Ark of the Covenant, underscores the primary way Israel is to encounter the divine, through God's written words. In the New Testament,
Mm,
reverence for the written word can also be observed. Jesus constantly refers to the Hebrew Scriptures as important texts that should be read or studied. Paul and the apostles sent out several letters that were meant to be read in the churches and for the whole congregation to hear. Paul even says that he hopes the Colossians will read a
mm,
letter he has sent to another church, which
mm.
suggests a Christian practice was to share texts so others could study them. In Acts 17, it says,
Almost, it feels like it was weirdly like the sharing of videos these days a little bit. Maybe that's sacrilegious, but feels like it is almost in that vein of things. Hey, here's a really good video I found the other day. You should watch this.
now these Jews were more noble than those in Thessalonica. They received the word with all eagerness, examining the scriptures daily to see if these things were so. The
Then
teaching of this
gossip,
verse is that it is noble to read
and
and
that's Thessalonica IP. Mm,
study the
maybe that's that.
scriptures,
Maybe
and
right.
that we ought to fact check claims to verify that they are true. So it is clear that one of the main focuses within the Judeo Christian tradition is the importance of reading. This is also not a practice reserved for the elites of society. All should seek and find God by reading His Word. Learning
Mm.
to read is not only good, it is an important way to encounter God. It follows that out
Let's
of
see
the
if there are
Christian
categories
tradition,
here or whatever on the timeline. Yeah, Christianity, early Christianity, Middle Ages. Here we go. He actually talks about this. Yay.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's
Yeah.
how I keep track of all my tasks.
Okay.
I start by brain dumping everything I need to get done.
Literacy rates were increasing, but this was only accelerated with the Reformation and the invention of the printing press.
Hmm.
Joshua Berman says,
See, again, I thought that was kind of the notion behind the creation of the printing press. With that, was that a lot of people couldn't read Latin, so I'm not saying the clergy had like an entire chokehold over the scriptures, but I feel like a lot of the common people perhaps couldn't have ready access. Which, again, I have to look into that at some point.
the Reformation called on parents to conduct family services, to catechize children and apprentices, and to
Hmm.
engage in Bible study in the home. What had formerly been the purview of the priest within the church was now brought home. The Geneva Study Bible of 1599 notes that masters in their houses ought to be as preachers to their families.
Hmm.
Martin Luther greatly encouraged that all Christians read the Bible daily. To
That looks haunting.
facilitate such a demand, he
What is this hat? Like, I think I've seen this in other stuff. Like, I kind of, I'm gonna guess it's a type of clergy hat.
encouraged governing officials to place schools in all towns to provide education for boys and girls. Parents were also called to be active in the education of their children. Luther believed ignorance was a terrible superstition that could be dealt with through education. Even if there was no soul, as I've already said, and men did not need schools in the languages for the sake of Christianity and the scriptures, still, for the establishment of the best schools everywhere, both boys and girls, this consideration is of itself sufficient, namely that society, for the maintenance of
Hmm.
civil order and the proper regulation of the household, need accomplished and well-trained men and women.
Makes
Following Luther's advice, by 1530, state officials were
Yeah, maybe there's a weird false perception of this because only the smartest people would generally probably write, but it feels like people back in the old days talked a lot nicer than people these days. If that makes sense. Like they just did a lot more smooth, uh, beautiful dialogue. But again, there might be a bias there because, like, again, certain types of writings, I say again, certain types of writing would be preserved, and certain types of people would probably have been the ones to have actually been educated and learned and whatnot. So, yeah, there might have been a little bit of yeah, I forgot what the word I was looking for is. Yeah, there's a little bit of a bias, though, maybe towards certain types of people's writings being preserved for a long period of time.
establishing schools wherever they had authority. Luther boasted these schools were much more humane, saying, "Our schools are no longer hell or purgatory, in which with much flogging, trembling,
Mm.
anguish, and wretchedness they learn nothing."
Bring back the flogging. Sorry. It seems like these days we could use a little bit more discipline in schools, given some of this stuff that goes down in public schools or whatever. Anyways,
These schools not
I
only
think we're
taught
gonna be done with this. You guys can look it up if you want. How Christianity Educated the World by Inspiring Philosophy. And now, for something completely different, we're gonna look at the Pinkerton Agency, which I learned of growing up and kind of rediscovered when I was listening to Sherlock Holmes, Bertie Edwards, I think. What's that one? Valley of Fear. Interesting story. Interesting story. Pinkerton is an American private investigation agency and security company is, but it's still going, I guess, maybe. Established around 1850 in the United States by Scottish-born American Cooper, I think he's a barrel maker, Alan Pinkerton, and Chicago attorney Edward Rudker as the Northwest, well, yeah, as the Northwestern Police Agency, which later became Pinkerton and Co. And finally, the Pinkerton National Detective Agency. At the height of its power from 1970s to 1870s to the 1890s, it was the largest private law enforcement organization in the world. It's currently a subsidiary of Swedish-based Securities AB. Pinkerton became famous when he claimed to have foiled the Baltimore plot to assassinate the president-elect Abraham Lincoln in 1861. Lincoln later hired Pinkerton agents to conduct espionage against the Confederacy and act as Lincoln's personal security during the American Civil War. As such, Pinkerton and his agencies are sometimes seen as the forerunners of the United States Secret Service. Interesting. Uh, Following the Civil War, Pinkertons began conducting actions, operations against organized labor. During the labor strikes of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, businessmen hired the Pinkerton agencies to infiltrate unions, supply guards, keep strikers and suspected unionists out of factories, and recruit goon squads to intimidate workers. To be fair, though, I think actually Sherlock Holmes was kind of a depiction of this. Not all of the unions were the greatest of peoples. There was some unfortunate stuff that went on there. But that's worth taking a look at sometime too. During the Homestead Strike of 1892, the Pinkerton agents were called to reinforce the strike-breaking measures of the industrialist Henry Clay Frick, who was acting on behalf of Andrew Carnegie, the head of Carnegie Steel. Huh. All right. Pinkerton agents were called in to reinforce the strike-breaking measures of industrialist Henry Henry Clay Frick. Wow, what a name! All right, who was acting on behalf of Andrew Carnegie, the head of Carnegie Steel. Tensions between the workers and the strikebreakers erupted into violence, which led to the deaths of 3 Pinkerton agents and 9 steel workers. During the late 19th century, the Pinkertons were also hired as guards in coal, iron, lumber disputes in Illinois, Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, and were involved in other strikes such as the Great Railroad Strike of 1877. During the 20th century, Pinkerton rebranded itself as Personal Security and Risk Management Firm. The company has continued to exist in various forms to the present day and is now a division of the Swedish security company Securities AB, operating as Pinkerton Consulting Investigation Incorporated. Doing business as Pinkerton Corporate Risk Management, the former Pinkerton Government Services Division, PGS, now operates as Securities Critical Infrastructure Services Incorporated. Yeah, that's kind of a cool logo. Private Eye, we never know. Yeah, this is kind of what looks like a private eye logo. Pinkerton National Detective Agency, we never sleep. Something to be afraid of. Anyways, moving on. I'm gonna try to play the hunting game again here. See if we can get some of that. Get some of that done. I should go grab some water here.
check and make sure this is actually streaming. Okay, seems to be all good. All right. All right. Now, where's my currency? 129. Just wondering how you get currency. Handgun. All of them revolvers. Ding, ding. Rhino. Thunderbird 54. No, Sunberg. There we go. This is the one I have. Wildcat 44 Wildcat Magnum. 44 Panther Magnum. Have the same gun, just different colors and stuff. Alright. Now, tracks to follow. If I remember correctly. Remember last time I got charged by a stupid moose. And then I couldn't find it. Eh. I can get a bear to attack or something. I wish they would do some sort of like revamp of Alaskan Adventures. That was like the coolest hunting. Well, maybe it's just a matter of it being one of the earlier games I played, but that was still like awesome as far as games went. There's like fishing, there was shooting birds, I think there was shooting birds. Maybe that was a different game. Yeah, but that was a classic.
You know, I spotted some tracks earlier, close to where you're at right now. I'll send the coordinates.
That's not what's supposed to be happening, but alright. I didn't even know you could get into the middle here. Maybe I did, I just didn't know it was the middle. Run away! I already killed one of these stupid jackasses last time. Oh, for the love! Okay. There's a med pack in here or something. Stupid deer. Is there anything like bandages or something? There we go, inventory. Mhm. Apparently not, because I don't have any of them at this point. I should go buy some of those at some point here. Gored by a white-tailed deer. What a way to go. Because I assume these are whitetails. Alright. You can actually discover like different zones where you can go to check stuff out sometimes. Cool. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. You know, actually, I'm gonna go play another game. Sorry, like this is a nice game, but it'd be nice to play on a Sunday morning. But right now, there's another game I actually want to play. Tower defense game. I've been trying to get a level 4 in this one thing. So, Tower Dominion. We'll do that instead. Sorry, guys, if you like that one. Again, fun, but also kind of boring right now. There we go. You can get some ambiance going here now. All right. Sounds. Nice.
For students drowning in research papers, Grammarly helped me strike the right tone, whether I was requesting research opportunities.
There we go. By George Vlad. If you want to know. Oh, let me see if this is streaming. do? Hmm. 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 What's the thing is, I was forgetting how the enemies came in, and what rate and stuff. You know, it's also super annoying. This tank and these things, they don't necessarily come out in like a predictable. I'm sure there's some pattern to it. Maybe they take the shortest route or something. Not for sure though. It'd be nice to know like which way they're gonna come out so you can do something about that. That's the point of the staging ground setup. We're sailing on moonlight day. Na, 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 na. Okay, one of those birds is getting really annoying. Yeah, all right. Mm-hmm. Dum, 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 dum. All right. Do a little bit more. Set up a thing for another tank. Hmm. I think I only have one here. Do we got a door? Oh no, there's two. Never mind. All right. Hmm. All right. That's nice. All right. Okay. Just a little bit more. Didn't spend so much money. Already done. Now, and put it. There we go. Done correct. Supposed to send out a tank every. Yeah. Tanky boy. In the Navy. In the Navy, you can put your navy. Swarm rockets. Never even thought of upgrade. Well, I should say never thought of it. Never did it. There we go. There we go. Take it down. That a boy? Hmm. Actually, I might upgrade some before I. Hmm. Mm-hmm. I can do wolf production, otherwise I'll lose stuff. Recon production. And I can't build another wolf. Oh, come on. I hate you. Alright. Now. Alright. See if we can wrap these two up into this. And do these two or something. Oh, great. I think you still get something even if they crash into it, but I think you get more if they don't. It's better, all things told, if you can make sure they do not make it to the base. Despite the fact that they might threaten the life, at this point they don't. You know, like they couldn't destroy it if they tried. So wait until they get more advanced enemies, they'll actually. In the Navy. There we go. There we go. More wolf. Fortunately, I can't even. No, I guess I could put it here, maybe. Hmm. No, I You almost need stuff to wrap around. There we go. Ouch. There we go. Cancel. Good. Let him go. Hmm. Yeah, that could weirdly actually be kind of useful, maybe. You only get an expansion every other turn or every other wave. There we go. Oh, come on. Alright. Yeah, couple more snipes. Alright, this one needs some more beefing up. Okay. Alright, finally. Alright. Junk. Try that. better. Hmm. Hmm. Dun, Hmm. 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 All right. Let's go here. Maybe. Why not? No. There we go. Now I still need to get some of those other ones back. Some point here. All right. Get down there. And next one will stick another one down here probably or something. That's one thing I've learned is kind of that sometimes maybe upgrading stuff is better than just getting another one of the same thing. In my years of experience, that is. Alright, let's go here. Okay, then we could do that one too. Well, the soldiers are supposed to going out that way. That's why I didn't need stuff there. And now they're going out like stupid. Alright. And thing is, this isn't going to remain. I'll go here, maybe? Here. That'll do. Cover all the bases, so to speak. And hmm. Is it worth it? No. Put more right here. What is that? That's a stupid thing. Let's just do control. Maybe I need to get a better mouse, but it feels like there's only like several modes here. Alright. Oh, the skulls that we're supposed to. The thing is, I'm not gonna need stuff there for like any other. Do that. Just enough to catch it. All right. Now, there's a thingy there. There's another piece so we can fill that in. We put a bunker right about here. Oh, crap. Apparently not well enough. Alright, one more try. If I quit forever, stupid game. Alright. Now, how are we going to do this? Okay. Should I match up these two somehow? Yes, we can maybe wrap around. These will be very easy to. Alright. You know. werewolf things are actually surprisingly advantageous. Protection. Hallelujah. Ironically, sarcastically even. Not cool. The protection once it is. Alright, here we go. This is 2 points. Alright, barely skimming by here. With borrowed time. Can't get some of this stuff going in. Two. Okay, that's gonna be a problem. Mother of pearl. Now, hmm? I could have improved that too. Alright. I remember here. All right, Claymore. Nice. Wait a minute. I'm gonna have to tie this in, aren't I? Or I could shoot that one. He was shooting up back there. All right. Oh. Mhm. All right. Hmm. Mhm. Mm. It's not bad. Hmm. Nope. This. Slow down a little bit. All right. Oh, great. That's where it's coming from. At least they take the long route. That one's not going. Nope. Dead. Stupid. Alright, one of these times. Anyways, thanks for watching and stuff. Bye.